Welcome to Ecclesia Principles, a biblical strategy for believers to engage in God's design for government with Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you could join us again today. We're continuing talking about what does it mean to be a Christian nation. And this is kind of a segue between discussing the jurisdiction of civil government and the jurisdiction of church government. Because with this, there's a lot, and I believe it's of God, that many Christians are beginning to get involved in government. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast, is we want to encourage people to get involved, but then we need to get involved in a biblical fashion. We need to understand what God says about government and how these things should work. And so with that, one of the biggest questions that people have is about a Christian nation. Some going, well, we're not a Christian nation, never been, which is wrong. But that doesn't mean, and the way people judge this is usually based off of an opinion. But the bottom line is, if you look at all forms of government and how you determine what type of government they are, it is when you examine their governmental structure and their laws, and what is the basis for that. A communist country doesn't necessarily follow all the writings of Karl Marx, but they're based off the principles of Marxism. Even so, a Christian nation doesn't have the Bible as its rule book, but a Christian nation establishes its government and its laws off of the concepts of the Bible. And so in that sense, we are a Christian nation. We have been since the beginning, and we still are. Now, the problem is so many are trying to remove those elements and keep us from continuing to be a Christian nation. Now, with this, we've talked about God's standard, that the standard for civil government is the purpose is to protect rights, and then it's held accountable for that if it violates those rights on its own. You know, there's one thing when you're protecting, one man from another man, but there's a whole different ballgame when the government is the one actually attacking the rights of the people. If you would, the standard that is upheld is just that. Judgment comes on nations if that nation, that civil government, violates the rights of the people. And you can see that really throughout history, Christian and non-Christian, if you would, from that standpoint. Now, with this, knowing that we're a Christian nation, and let me just throw this out. The bottom line is every nation is going to be built off of some principle. Either that or you're going to have chaos. You see, the Greeks formed a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic where our representatives are democratically elected, but we're a constitutional republic. Now, you see, in a pure democracy, there are no rules. It's just the rule of the majority. And you see, that was one of the things that our founders feared greatly, because one of the things in their discussions in forming our government was what they called the tyranny of the majority. And we see a lot of that today. And the bottom line is, in all honesty, I don't believe those that we're seeing tyranny from, and I'll tell you how I'm defining tyranny. You have to believe what I believe. You can't speak contrary to what I say. You have to be quiet if you don't agree with me. You have to call me whatever I want you to call me, even if it is totally contrary to biology. You have to abide by what I say. And there's a lot of people backing that. And if you would, they're trying to create a tyranny of the majority. That's not the standard for a Christian nation. That's not the standard, because at that point, self-government is violated, family government is violated, and civil government does not live up to its purpose nor the standard that God created it to be in. And so anyway, we're out of time. Have a great weekend. God bless you. See you next week.
You've been listening to Ecclesia Principles with Ray Eppard. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook on our Ray Eppard pages. This program was brought to you by Victory Worship Center and World Outreach. Services Sunday 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, 200 Hammond Lane, Stanton, Virginia.